help me welcome Brian Chesky, who is the co-founder and CEO of Airbnb, with Sarah Lane, who is the host and producer of TWiT. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you. Where do you want me to sit?
I think we can both sit in the middle here.
All right.
Hey everybody, good morning. All right, so Brian, you and I just met backstage for the first time before, but I'm very familiar with Airbnb because I actually used it to stay here in Paris for LeWeb last year. It was a really good experience, but for anybody out there who really doesn't understand what Airbnb is, concept.
So yeah, we like to say that Airbnb is part of this new economy built on the idea of sharing. And we allow you to list or book unique spaces or experiences with real people. And we're in over 19,000 cities in 192 countries. And our original vision was, what if you could book somebody's bedroom the way you could book a hotel anywhere around the world? And what's grown from that is people listing not just their bedrooms, but their entire homes, castles, boats, tree houses, and all sorts of unique spaces.
Well, yeah, so when I first heard of Airbnb, I said, oh, okay, so it's a couch surfing type of a business where people say, yeah, I've got some extra room on my couch, you can stay if you're not a crazy person type of a thing. So Airbnb can work in that way if somebody has a guest room or even a space in their living room. But you can also rent out a beautiful villa in Tuscany if the person who owns that property feels like renting it.
You know, the company started, the original name Airbnb comes from a longer name, which was Air, Bed, and Breakfast, because one day, Joe and I, two of the three co-founders, we wanted to rent out our apartment, we didn't have enough money for rent. And so we decided to create a bed and breakfast, but we didn't have any money, we didn't have any beds, so we created an Air, Bed, and Breakfast. So it kind of started in that area, a little closer to couch surfing, and then we realized all these people want to rent out bedrooms. And then pretty soon people want to rent out their entire homes and apartments, and now we have entire villas, we have castles, we have private islands. The country of Liechtenstein rented their entire country out on our website for $700,000 a night. Prince Hans II was your host. You got to change the names of the streets and rent out the sports stadiums. And now, like Conan O'Brien rented his stage on our website. President Obama, the home he vacation did last Christmas in Hawaii is on our website. So it's a pretty wide range of spaces.
You've gotten a lot of press. I remember, I think you told me in 2008 you started the company from nothing, a couple credit cards, then you got a little funding from Y Combinator, and then this year you got quite a bit more funding, which is why you're expanding exponentially. Somebody like Conan O'Brien, which is a big, very popular TV host in the States, renting out his stage, I mean, it's kind of a fun little gimmick, to get people interested, but how many sign-ups would Airbnb get from something like that? From obviously an audience that might have never heard about it otherwise.
So usually when you get these really big press events, we always imagine that it's going to lead to this huge spike of press. And a lot of entrepreneurs think when they get press, it's going to change their business. And the truth is it doesn't. A whole bunch of people hear about you, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get more revenue. In a travel business or in a site where it's important to be top of mind, you're not necessarily going to use a site if you hear about it once, but if you hear about 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. Mm-hmm. So, the people that heard about Conan, maybe then they're going to hear about it from their friends and some other people. So it doesn't lead to any specific spike. It's just part of being, kind of part of the zeitgeist, being part of, just a share of mind, Getting mind share is really important.
I think Airbnb started to become part of almost a vernacular, to the point where I heard the city of New York was like, what is this Airbnb thing? Are they going to take down our hotel industry? What happened there?
So actually, this is a bit of a misconception. Early 2000s, there were these landlords renting out entire apartments and turning them into hotels. So they passed this legislation to stop these landlords from doing that. And the bill was written very broadly, so people concerned that Airbnb was going to be a target of that. But that was a year and a half ago, and since then we've not been a target. Today, we have 8,500 listings in New York on Airbnb, and if a traveler stays in New York City tonight, we are the #1 provider of accommodation. They're more likely to stay with us than anybody else. That's how pervasive it is. And in New York City, people are making thousands of dollars. Here in Paris, the average host makes $5,400 a year renting their place on our website, and that's renting their space 4 nights a month.
So that was just New York saying, wait a second, are they doing what I think they're doing, where they're turning properties into hotels that are not up to code?
Actually, they didn't even know about us. They never heard about us when they passed the legislation. So they never heard about us. And the vast majority of people on our website, rent out their own space that they're not using. And we think that's what this idea of the sharing economy is about. It's about if you have something extra that you're not using, and by the way, your rent, your house is typically a week, a month of your paycheck. So if you're spending a week of your month just working to pay off the space that you're in and you're not using most of that space, there's somebody around the world that might want to use that. And that was kind of where we started. And we started to think, well, that can be applied to your home. Why couldn't it be applied to your backyard? Why couldn't it be applied to your driveway or any other space? And so we're starting to see that Airbnb is not only spreading around the world, it's in every country but North Korea, people recall Congo, and like one other. But it's really about people renting out anything extra that they have.
Okay, so when I leave Paris in a few days, I'm lucky enough to go down to Barcelona and decided to stay in an Airbnb.
Yeah.
Lots of Airbnb rentals in Barcelona. It's crazy. Picked one that I think I really like, and part of what I do whenever I'm trying to think of if it's the kind of place I want to go, I make sure that the host has a good rating. Ratings are based on how quickly they get back to people, good reviews from people who've stayed in their properties, so there are all of those factors. And the folks that I chose also had a few other listings. I went, oh, okay, so this isn't their house. This is one of some of the properties that they have. All the properties seem very nice. Do you guys care if somebody only has one modest little studio with all of their personal effects that they're renting out versus someone who seems more like a landlord that has a variety of properties?
We have a few kind of guidelines at Airbnb. We like to say Airbnb is about a way for real people to rent out unique spaces. By unique spaces, we mean not like a hotel, like the hotels here in San Francisco or in Paris that people are staying at, where every room's kind of the same. We want the photos to be of that exact place you're going to stay. And we want a person to be able to communicate with you. It's really about a community of ordinary people. That being said, it's becoming a platform. We saw this with eBay, where you start to have this notion of the power sellers. So, I think that's really, certainly an interesting part of the community, but it's definitely a small part of the community. The majority of people are artists, they're photographers, they're, people in the startup industry, they're, families, they're really people all over the world that are just renting their extra space, whether it's their primary home or their second home. And some of the other really interesting benefits, this is something that is not super obvious. So when you go to a hotel, a lot of cities, all the hotels are typically in like one area. There's like a designated commercial hotel district. And what happens is because all the hotels are there, that's where all the tourists are. And because that's where all the tourists are, that's where all the restaurants are, right? There's a lot of restaurants. And those restaurants aren't the restaurants that the local Parisians eat at. Those are the restaurants that the tourists eat at. And so they end up being the same restaurants that are in like Berlin, or the same restaurants that are in Miami. You have these chains of hotels, you have these chains of restaurants, all these businesses. And the really cool thing about Airbnb is that people in Paris or New York or these other cities are literally staying in neighborhoods, in like every neighborhood, in almost every block of the city. So that means we're really expanding tourism. It's kind of like this tourism 2.0. And we're bringing business into these local businesses, local coffee shops that have only been patroned by locals. And that really kickstarts word of mouth. So we're starting to see this huge amount of benefits from local businesses. So I think that's one of the really interesting things that's not super obvious.
When you are someone who rents your space, whether it's a house or room or a driveway, and you don't get back to people who are pinging you like, hey, is December 7th going to be good? Your response rating goes down.
Yep.
You might have like a 63% response rating. Someone like me says, I don't know if I want to deal with this man or this woman because they don't get back to people quick enough. Does Airbnb intervene at all if somebody seems to have a great place but is just like not picking up their side of the bargain?
Yeah, that's one of the things we've learned. When we first built this website, we wanted the whole thing to be super automated. And then we started realizing we're a business that's connecting people in person. It's about relationships. And so we try to have a relationship with all the hosts on our website. So we have we call it like an activation team. It's kind of like an account management team. And we also have a pretty active customer support team that will reach out to hosts if they're not being responsive. And if they don't meet a certain threshold, we'll just deactivate their account. And so they will have to contact us if they want to relist their place. So we try to be very active about how we manage the marketplace. And that's one of the keys to a site like ours, that you have to be a bit more hands-on than we thought we had to be in the early days.
Interesting. So over the summer, there was an incident, an Airbnb incident, which was, I think anybody would agree, was a total fluke, crazy exception, where somebody had her house vandalized. And because of that, you had to put more security measures in effect and make sure that other, I don't want to say landlords, Airbnbs, felt safe to have strangers in their home. Sometimes people that you wouldn't even meet face to face because you're going to leave a key somewhere.
Yep.
How did that affect the way that you ran the business going forward?
Well, when we built this company, we literally would use these experiences, these examples, to build and make a better product. And I think what happened is, for us, it made us take this issue, to really expedite things we were already planning on doing. So, when this apartment, there was an issue with this one apartment, we decided that we wanted to beef up security on our site. And over the course of 2 weeks, we had a whole bunch of products in development, and then we had a few other things we always thought about doing that we had never done. So over the 2-week period, we just rolled out this myriad of products. There were 40 different trust and safety features. And a few of them, the two things that I'm really excited about are that one was a 24/7 customer support line. Mm-hmm. So we always had always had customer support. We decided we want to be 24/7, which for a website, a lot of people don't want to. Most technology companies don't want to have a 24/7 line. And the other thing is we decided to roll out a $50,000 guarantee for all the hosts on our website in major countries, where it was a guarantee against theft and vandalism. And I think for us it was a bit of a wake-up call that we had to do more. And I think going forward, we're going to continually try to use the community to learn. One of the reasons that I think people are responding to the site is that we built the site for ourselves. This site was this way for me to make rent. I wasn't inspiring to start a website. We wanted to just make rent one weekend. We needed to we didn't have money for rent. And going forward, when we started growing, we built this company out of an apartment, a 3-bedroom apartment, and then pretty soon we ran out of space in our apartment. And I actually ended up moving out of our apartment because we needed more office space. So for almost a whole year, I lived on our website in San Francisco, staying from apartment to apartment all over the city. It's amazing, when you actually, when you bought an iPhone or you bought an iPod, Steve Jobs didn't come and sleep on your couch, but I did. And so that was a pretty interesting thing, actually meeting every one of these users. And everyone has a unique story. And we built the iPhone app. I was actually testing the iPhone app, and I was like, oh, this doesn't work. So we were getting all this real-world testing. And I'm doing the same thing now. We're actually in development of an Android application. It's one of the most frequently asked questions, when are you coming out with the Android application? And that's something we've been working on for a really long time, and that's coming out in the next month.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
that'll make a lot of people happy. So iPhone app, Android app. What about iPad app? I've got an iPad, and one of my favorite things to do, no joke, is to just troll Airbnb when I'm watching TV. Ooh, that would be a nice place to go next time I'm in Romania. The pictures show up high res, which is great, but it's not iPad optimized.
It's not iPad optimized yet. And we've been working on trying to make sure that the iPhone and Android platform, so we have the platform developed. Next will be mobile and then iPad, and that will be early 2011 or 2012. We don't have dates yet. Mm-hmm. But the really cool thing about the opportunity we have with things like the iPad application is, we have, and we don't talk a lot about this, but we have a huge network of photographers. If you come to Airbnb, you'll see these beautiful photographs. It says Airbnb verified on the photograph.
Check mark.
So you can add your listing, you can take your own photos, your iPhone, or we'll send a professional photographer to your place for free. And these are beautiful, high-resolution photographs. And we actually have 2,000 photographers that in this network that travel the world taking photographs of the places. And oftentimes, the photographer community uses Airbnb in a way to subsidize their housing. So they'll stay at a place and they'll photograph it, and they'll subsidize the housing.
It's free for the person who wants their house to look great, but what do you pay the photographers?
So it's all depending upon their level of experience. Mm-hmm. So it's a pretty wide range of rates depending upon how experienced they are.
And how do you find them?
They actually find us. We put out different ads, and we now have a page on the. Well, actually, I should say one other thing. When we first launched it, we had this feature called Groups, and groups would be where you went to school, what your interests are. So it turns out the most popular group, the second most popular group, was the Harvard University group, because we happen to have a lot of alumni from Harvard. One of our co-founders went to Harvard, and I think word of mouth in Harvard got pretty big. But the single most popular group was photographers. So this is pretty cool, right? We have thousands of photographers who are hosts and our travelers on our site. So suddenly we needed thousands of photographers, and what better way to find thousands of photographers than to just email the people in our community? And so I guess what that means is that Airbnb is becoming its own ecosystem. That when you need a certain service, there are people